Hi. Hello, everybody. Privet, zeggen ze in Rusland. Privet. I think we can start. Welcome everybody here. Oh, the music is still on, or not? Yeah. Well, it's the third time we are here together. IQ, it's called. Q Cafe was the title of a debate program we did in the 90s for 7 years in Plaza Futura. And it was about the issue of talking about the quality of the city. And this year we started with the international version of it, English spoken, to invite people that are here, students from abroad, but also expats and people that like to hear what's happening in Eindhoven. My name is Kees Donkers. I do the first part of this evening. The idea is to talk about the context of what we like to talk about tonight. The title of our subject is Sexy Urbanism. The idea is to show what happened the last 20 years in our city. When we changed from a former industrial city to, and it was called the Ugly Duck, ugly city, the ugliest city of Holland, into a beautiful design pearl. And the reason why we're here is also because of young people, students. They brought in the new identity of the city, new ideas. We were able to listen to the new generation. So the idea is also to talk about this aspect tonight too. I have a large presentation, so I would like to run through the slides. The idea is to tell you a little bit about the city itself, for people that don't know the city. Then talk about the change that happened in the atmosphere during the last 20 years and the role of design in it. The word city, here you can see it's on a map or photo from outer space. It shows the energy that is here in this region, in Europe. The energy that's even more important now. We have a new city logo. It's also about the energy that's here. We spend a lot of light, but we still have a lot of energy in this region. When we zoom in, we found out we are in between several important regions, the rural area in Germany, the main port in Rotterdam, and airport Amsterdam, of course, in the west part, and the Belgian cities too. Everybody knows us from this title, Brainport. We think we are the brains of Holland, at least. But last year we had the smartest square kilometer in the world. But we also like to go for the fact that we like to be cultural capital in 2018. What happened was this slide, we changed from an ugly duck into a design pearl. But we did it not by Brainport, but by Brainfield. We explored the energy that's in the youth in our city. So that's a startup. First about the city, 2 years are important, 1920, when Philips was growing large and we connected 5 villages around the city to house all the laborers that were needed for Philips. 1990 is also important because that growth stopped. We closed the city and we didn't build the outside anymore, and we were able to reuse the city because we lost a lot of employment in the city. Philips had troubles, DAF, motorcars had troubles, and we had to deal with that fact. So we started to reuse the city, more or less, you can say. First by the infrastructure. First line we redeveloped was the line from the station area to Eindhoven Airport, to redevelop it for more public transport and less cars. We also did the other part, that were the empty factories that were there. From number 1 till number 5, those factories of Philips were filled for 100 years with laborers, with the making industry, but we lost that making industry, and we had to deal with the fact that we had a lot of empty sites at that time. Here you can see how Philips grew from 1920 in west direction. In the middle you can see the small parts, the small buildings in the heart of the city, but at the left up you see the White Lady built in 1920 already, a very huge concrete building, huge for that time. So what we had to deal with was to make a new connection and to reuse that empty site, gated site, from former Philips factories. First ideas in '94 were the sketches here from Jo Koenen. And the idea was to make a new backbone, a new connection, right through the heart of that empty site, that empty in the way that we couldn't get in. It was a gated site. Nobody could get in unless he was employee of Philips. The idea was to make a new backbone in through the heart of this site and to get new life in it. And the new life exists at that time out of new buildings, new housing part. We not only reused the White Lady for cultural functions, but we also built, let's call it Red Gentleman. Brick new buildings for housing, close to the White Lady, the same form, but more dense. And we also put up the White Lady, upright as the first dwelling tower in Eindhoven. This is the result, the final result. So that all happened in '94 till 2000, let's say. So a new dense area close to the heart of the city in a new scale. Even in 1998, the directors of Philips went to Amsterdam too. So we not only lost the making industry, but also our directors. They went to Amsterdam. But it was the opportunity for us to reuse even that beautiful light tower that was still the icon of the Philips industry. And we brought in new ideas, new meeting places for people to meet. The Usine, it's now the best restaurant, I guess, to bring in your guests if you invite them to come to Eindhoven. Here you can see the interior. It looks a bit like a respectful design for the history of Philips. We also built new public spaces. The former tracks in front of the Bijenkorf was transformed into a new square, 18 September Square. And we built a beautiful blob. It's called the blob. And it's beautiful because it was an answer to the several styles in architecture that come together there. The before the war architecture, the after war architecture, and even the modernism of Fuchsas. And he was the one who designed this blob. We also found out that we would like to bring in new housing types, lofts, for people to live on Stripe S. It was thought about in 1997 already, and now it's almost 15 years later, it's able to live there in this kind of architecture. We also redeveloped not only the White Lady area, but also the number 3 of the sites, Stripe S. Here you can see the master plan, in which you can see that we also reused old factories for housing. So the loft idea was not only an idea, but became reality last month or 2 months ago. Here you can see the idea to reuse an old factory also for housing, to build in a new, let's say, empty hole in it, to meet each other through the different levels. As you can see here, you not only use the elevators where you don't talk or don't speak to each other, but you also use these very small stairs, 70 centimeters wide, so you have to touch each other when you pass. So that's the idea, to bring in new elements of physical touch and physical meeting. So that's about the city. Something about the changing culture. What also happened during that 20 years, well, it happened in my place where I live, that's here, the White Village. We started up to do the maintenance ourselves in that neighborhood. I was very young. My children were the first children in that neighborhood in the 70s. But we started up to do the maintenance ourselves, but not one by one, but together. And that's why we got, at the end, the title of a monument, because the quality of the architecture remained. And because of this small success in a small neighborhood, we started up a program. I told you, Q Café, in the theater nearby, around the corner. It was the beginning of the 90s. The city wanted to demolish the White Lady. There were some artists who wanted to reuse that White Lady for 20,000 square meters of atelier studios. Of course, that was impossible, but they gave the sign for this debate, to start up, to talk to each other about this quality of Eindhoven, together with young people, and make, for instance, as you can see here, small video clips with high school students. Always empty, always a full house in that Plaza Futura, as you can see here. and the great professors from the beginning of the Faculty of Architecture, as you can see here, John Haalbrake in the middle, the founder of the faculty, but also guys like Winnie Maas on the right. They came to talk about this kind of quality. We started to write about re-arch, books about reuse of beautiful places. We were invited to go to Germany, 1994, to tell what we learned from our city, the White Lady and the White Village. There started a great process of change in the rural area, and we could inspire them to do the same as we did in Eindhoven. We invited in 2000 3 important designers, Peter Eisenman and 2 Italian guys, Mendini and Branzi, to think with us and young, talented students about the future of the city. Well, I was able to work with Peter Eisenman together and 3 talented students, not only architects, but there was a guy who was a poet and a girl who was an architect too, but a landscape architect, and we studied on the issue of the railway tracks. Peter Eisenman, he came for free because he was not so cheap to come to Eindhoven. We had to pay his ticket from Moscow to Paris, and then he came. It was a lot of money, but he came for free to present the results. He wanted to fly the Concorde at that time, so that's why. But he came for free to Eindhoven to present the results, as you can see here. And students of Eindhoven and Delft University made this model. It's now still an icon in the Faculty of Architecture, as you know. Well, we learned from this that we could study, let's say, we could use a city as a laboratory. So we started to study together with students and young, talented people about high-rise buildings in the city. Making models of a very high-dense area near the station. And presented the results in the city hall, so close to the politicians. And they liked it. We wrote a book about it, E+. It's 2005, the first results of these studies. And we had our first conference in the empty law house near the station hall. Later on it became a design house. Here you can see the first time we reused this empty place where only students lived at that time. And 300 people came inside. We invented the quality of this beautiful space. So we found out that organizing events to show your beauty and your progress is very important. Even Jo Koenen came back. We studied together. We worked together for 15 years on Smallehaven, and at the end he went with his office to Amsterdam and to Maastricht, but he came back to present the final result, and he was proud. We also invited 5 generations of politicians, of aldermen, to see the end of this work. And we even had a beautiful party in front of the church to reuse even music. We reused the church bells and the organ from inside to combine it with the music of Kraftwerk. And Lady Ida, a DJ, she was the one who mixed those beautiful church bells with that pop music of Kraftwerk. And again, a full house in the square. Of course, we wrote a book about it too. This cooperation that cost a lot of money, the money stopped in 2009. And we thought we'd like to continue this cooperation without money. So we founded the virtual Brabant Academy, also with not only the knowledge institutes and the city department, but also with companies, as you can see here. Companies started to help us to be sponsors of this program. And the virtual academy was a reality, Brabant Academy. So that's what's changed within 20 years, the atmosphere in the city. So from a demolishing city, losing their beautiful buildings from the past, but into a new atmosphere in which it was possible to save them and to reuse them. The role of design. Well, Lonnie is here. We started in 2005 with reusing a beautiful old church, not demolishing it, but reuse it. And Ingrid de Boer, new director of Woonbedrijf, the social housing company in Eindhoven, she was the one who presented not only herself in the Temporary Arts Center during the design week, but she was also the one who decided not to demolish this small church, but let it be the house for 4 talented students. Lonnie and Nadine, Atelier NL, but also Emily, Fashion, and Mark, Music, called themselves the 4 Apostles. First thing they did was this, organizing the Last Supper, inviting 8 other talented students to join them in preparing the most beautiful dinner I've ever had. You can see the products that they designed and they used for the presentation of this meal. But not only the products were presented, but they presented it themselves. And they were also beautiful. So what you can see here is only beauty. And we found out that let's say we became an adult. We found out our beauty as a city. We found out that we have a young generation in the city that we like to keep here and not to move to Amsterdam or to Rotterdam or abroad. We like to not only to have them as students, but also have them as young entrepreneurs. So Liedewij Edelkoort, the director of the Design Academy, she decided to use that design house as the new house for this kind of development. So in 2008 it was, well, let's say a bit modified. It was better usable for presentations, and it was opened by Alberto Alessi during the Design Week. We found out it was the place where also the city council could come and talk about design aspects in the city. As you can see here, people that were involved in not only as designers but also in the city questions, let's say, they were there too. And we also found out it's not only about products but also about social design, so about people that we like to care for, about care. We even did a project about prostitution together with students from the Design Academy, and this woman Birgit Mager, a professor from Germany, she guided this process. But also Gijs Bakker from the Design Academy was a guy who was able to guide this process, and he liked it very much. He wrote a book about it too. Even this kind of developments were also possible. A small empty shop was reused as a tea house for, let's say, women from abroad to talk about behind the door questions. Also started up by Design Academy students. And during the Design Week 2008, we invited Alberto Alessi not only to open, let's say, the Bobo party in the design house on the Saturday night, but also on Sunday morning, join us at the breakfast and also invite young designer students that made some products about reuse, as you can see here. Leftover products that were brought into a new perspective. And those students were invited by Alessi to go to Milano, to his studio, to also reuse his leftover models. And this was the 10th anniversary of the Design Week. Here you can see that only people can make the Design Week, the designers themselves, and not the bobos that are in the lead. It's built up and it's developed by the designers themselves. And I think this is a beautiful picture that shows the girls and the boys that are part of that development and are part of that brain field in the city still. We even used the stairs in the city hall and had some expositions, but also had on a Sunday morning every year a debate with the aldermen and young students to talk about these issues during the Design Week 2011. We became finalists for World Design Capital, but we lost from Helsinki. But we found out that international cooperation is the key to the future. So we started up with developing the breeding places for students if they left their studies or still studying to build up their own environment and companies. Little Mountain is one of the most famous, not only starting in the street that's called Little Mountain, but also moved to the Philips factories. But also this kind of development, empty factories were started up situations called the yard, where you can use, and this is, well, the most beautiful one, I guess, but Martin is here, he will talk about it later, to show what happened in, well, let's say this, what I like to call sexy urbanism. Well, at the end, you can see this is situation 2013, and we like to continue tonight with talking about other developments, international cooperation, but I think it's too long for me to talk and to present this too. I think you will find out more about it tonight, that we started to study also in Russia, for instance. Fiona is here too. We did some projects in Russia too. And I myself was already for 12 times in Russia to cooperate with huge cities over there. And we have students here from Russia to start up this idea of international cooperation in studio. Well, this is the first part of the presentation, to sketch more or less the context of what we like to talk about tonight. The idea behind this subject is the fact that ISOCARP is an international cooperation of urban planners. It was founded in 1965, and they bring this kind of reviews every year. ISOCARP review about urban development worldwide, let's say. It's an international cooperation of urban designers. They have their 50th celebration in 2015. We are here with a few people from this cooperation, urban planners. And we think that we like to use this evening also to talk about these subjects. Because if we would like to have another 50 years, those people were 25 when they started up this cooperation in 1965. Now they are 75 after 50 years. So I think we need some young people to join them and to use their knowledge, but to also to bring it to young people. So face on the Facebook generation, that's the idea. We like to use this evening, this dialogue tonight, this presentation, to have a startup of this process and to invite all those urban planners worldwide to celebrate their 50th anniversary also in Eindhoven, where it started in 1965. So that's the idea. ISOCARP, Urban Planners Network. We have one presentation now from, let's say, two presentations from Grietje from Antwerpen, but she will explain her presentation too, and Marcus Appenzeller from Rotterdam, also international cooperation with Russia, and they will explain more about the way they work on it. And the last presentation will be from Martin from here, Collaboration O. Well, Grietje, it's on to you.
Good evening. I am Griet Gering. I am working in Antwerp. I'm working for the city of Antwerp in a public autonomous company. We are a group of 45 urbanists working in the neighborhoods of Antwerp, and we redevelop them. This evening I was asked to come speaking because we want to prepare the ISOCARP Congress in 2050, and we want to have a lot of young people participating to that Congress. But I didn't know what I have to expect this evening, so I haven't prepared a complete presentation about how we are working. I think it's a little bit boring too, but I have some things to tell you about the inspiration of how to think about the city. And that's very important about the way you can work in the city. I will start with a presentation of the City 2.0 that won the TED Prize 2012, but I found myself that YouTube film very inspiring to see what the city can be. Yeah? Let's just watch it. but when you see all those pictures, you know what the context is we have to work in when we're working in a city. And when we have to work for the future for a city, you know all those elements are very important. With the company, we have been thinking about how we could build our vision. We said, yeah, we are planners and we are working in the city and we are designing and we are making public space and we are making parks and we are making, but living in a city and working in a city is something more. With all my colleagues, we have just remade the word city, but I have to translate it. We have made a verb of it, an active word. We are citying, stadten. Iedereen stad, als vervoegd werkwoord voor de mensen die Nederlands spreken. So we had made a verb of city, and that gives you another feeling about what you are having to do in that city. So we are stadten, but we are AG Stadsplanning, we are AG Stadsplanning Antwerpen, we are AG Stadsplanners. So we have together a vibe of what we are doing in that city. We are a group about 45 planners, about 30, 40 years. So we like to be very young in working in the city. So you have some of the projects we did. Some of you probably know Parkspoor Noord, the reconversion of a railway yard to a new park. It is about 17 acres. It is in a very nearby, a very poor neighborhood, but we have got the success that it is a park for the city, but it is also for the neighborhood a really place to live. This guy is one who is working in the districts of Antwerp in Borgerhout, and he also likes I am citying. So he is saying, yes, it's very important that we're working on the city, but it's also very important to working on the local. This is the red light quarter, het Schipperskwartier. Here we have yes, we have redeveloped the red light quarter, not only by the security has to be better, but also the life of the prostitutes has to be better. So we have remade the public space, the housing, and also a whole possibility for the prostitutes to live better. We have also a healthcare center for them, and so on. All those projects are about, it's during about 5 or 10 years from the beginning to the end. Then we are also having dialogues with other people who are talking about how to live together, but also planners. So we exchange our way of thinking with others. So he is also citying. This is the Koningplein. It is nearby the central station. Also a neighborhood of prostitution. There we have built a new library and also the public space around. Every month there is one Sunday you can go to the market and buying and selling books. It's working very well. It's a very well-known activity. Now we have everyone is just citying. We have to organize during the process from the beginning to the end. We organize a lot of activities so that people learn to know a place where they never come, how the place is, and what are the possibilities of the place, what is the possible future of that place. The activities, a market or a dance party or something else. We are just organizing it. People are coming to that place. We have in Antwerp every summer we have the Zomer van Antwerpen. It's very known, and that organization choose that locations just to open them for the public and to make that places will become a part of the city life. This is also in the neighborhood of the central station, the design center, the Winkelhaag. It still exists, it still works, and a lot of designers can, as starter, they can hire a place there, they can work there, and when they have enough activity, they have to leave the building and they have to look for an own place. But so, new designers are coming on and have the possibility to start their work there. Then how the world is citying. We are just going to look at the other cities. What are they doing? How are they doing it? We are changing that kind of methods, that's the way they are take the problems, how they are going on with the problems. So you see there the swimming pool in the river. I think it's Berlin. Now we have in Antwerp also a swimming pool in the dock of the neighborhood, the island. On that way, we inspire us in other countries. This is then also in the neighborhood, the island, where it is a reconversion of an old harbor place to a city place. And now you see that everyone is going to there. It's very beautiful because you have a lot of water there. So it's a very quiet place with a lovely sight of boats and so on. So people like that place, and it's a new part of the city. Also others are citying. You see also New York and Emden Park. This is then the Green Quarter. It's an old military site where all the buildings are renewed. There are also new houses built. But here you have an intense working together with the private developers. So we have designed, we have formulated a lot of conditions which the project, the private project developer has to take in mind when he is going to build there. So we have it as an owner, we sell it under conditions, and the private project developer can make his project. That's also a way of working with them. And so then we have the question, you are citying too, and that's the invitation to everyone. You want to live in the city, so we can't do it our own, so we have to do it together. I can say also that in Antwerp we have a structural plan, and a structural plan which is a strategic plan. It isn't a plan who has defined all places how they have to be, but it is a plan in which the Italian architects, Secchi and Vigano, have made it. They have defined the vision and the ambition for all those places, also for the city, but also for the places. So we know what the places have to become in the future, but they haven't said how we have to do it. So every place we are going to start to working is a place where we are starting with a process from what this neighborhood needs, what are the ingredients we need for that place, and how do people live there now. This is the big projects we do, but in all the territories we develop, we have also some innovative initiatives. Probably we have rebuilt the public space from the central station to the shopping center of the city. During that, that work, we have made a talking wharf, you could say. We have discussed with the one who has to build the street that he has to form his wharf as a public space where everyone could pass with photos integrated and so on. So we ask them to think about how can people feel when they pass that wharf. It might not be that they have to go through it like a very ugly thing. No, it has to be a beautiful wharf. In other places we work together with youth when we have no money, but the place is something that need to be redeveloped. We ask people from the city without money just to come to work, and together with the young people, we rebuild it. We make some hills so they can take their bike and go over it. So we reform that places with no money, but with the people. And that are some of the projects we taken in the big neighborhood redevelopments. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm switching focus a bit. I'm going to talk about sexy urbanism. My name is Marcus Appenzeller. I'm one of 3 partners of a firm called MLA Plus, and it doesn't matter if you've never heard of it. We exist since 1.5 years now, and we're working in 3 continents now, I think in about 10 countries. So we consider ourselves a small firm with a lot of experience and quite a large market, which is good, especially in times of crisis. So what I want to explain to you today is more like kind of how things came about and how we actually ended up finding, and actually still in the process, actually developing a structure how we can operate, which in a way deals with the fact that we're working in different cultures and deals with the fact that we're working on a very wide range of works, from architecture, which we do a lot in London, to sort of framework plans, you could almost say, which we do in Russia, for example. Well, Kees invited me, and he gave it the title "Sexy Urbanism," you know, I think for urbanism to be sexy, planners should also be sexy. Now, I mean, this is what I came across when I looked for urban and sexy, and in a way, that's about as far as sexy planners and sexy urbanism came so far. Because if we look at what real planners are, this is what planning is about. That's Cornelis van Eesteren and Jacobo Mulder in Amsterdam in the 1940s, I guess. This is actually what the world sees as planning, something which is, and I find particularly interesting that he's wearing a kind of white coat, and it tells a lot about what actually planning until, I would say, 10 years ago was. It was actually more like considered a science that helps solving all the problems we have, technical problems mainly. And the whole discussion around quality is actually something which is not so old. It started somewhere in the 70s, but I think it only really took off in the late 1980s, 1990s. So in terms of time frames and in terms of development of society, it's still pretty early days in that. And that means that I feel we're very much in a sort of transition process between the old planning and, in a way, that kind of technocratic planning towards the new planning, and that still has to find its shape. These guys actually, and it's not them personally, that's why I don't want to blame anyone personally, this is what they created. Kind of modernist environments, which at that time were considered cutting edge, which of course delivered some solutions to some problems, but they also ignored a whole bunch of things which are equally important. One being that human beings are very individual, and human beings are not just like eggs which can be kind of put in a kind of shelf where they live for now and forever. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of these developments struggle or failed entirely. Well, in Amsterdam, they've kind of simply chosen what Dutch often do, just get rid of it and build something new. Eindhoven, luckily, takes a slightly different approach, but that's probably also because the problems appeared here slightly later than they did in the Bijlmer in Amsterdam. But we also see things happening at the moment. This is a picture which is just 3 days ago. It's from the Taksim Square in Istanbul. And to me, it tells a lot about the state of planning and what planning delivers and what planning doesn't deliver. This is a demonstration against the project, which is supposed to look like this up here. This is what they planned for that place, which is a park now, and people just object to it. And all politicians they don't know what to do with it. They react as they always do. We're just going to do it. We don't care. It's all planned, and it's going to happen. Now I'm curious what's going to happen in Istanbul. I know what happened in Stuttgart, where they did plans for a new train station. A city as conservative as Stuttgart is, kind of all by a sudden was out on the street and was actually threatening a whole station development, which is this, to totally derail with the hope of many people that this station is not going to be built. Ultimately, it gets built, but it was a whole long process of mediation, of actually bringing people on board, in a way, bringing people together, that somehow there is a sort of basic consensus that this project should continue. And it's still not, by no means, 100% clear whether that station actually gets built or not, because it runs in a number of other issues, one being that costs, I think, have tripled in the meantime, and so. But this is what planning projects are about, and this is what planning is about. We're still kind of thinking very much in terms of planning as the technical solution to a problem, which is fine, there's nothing wrong about it, we need to do it. But there is another layer which kind of has popped up, and this is still what a lot of planners are actually struggling with, because we're actually dealing with people. We need to involve people. We need to actually be much broader in our thinking. It's not a strictly top-down process anymore. It's a process where top-down and engaging people bottom-up somehow have to come together. Now, saying this is kind of nice. It's a very European perspective, I think. And this is where I'm kind of slightly worried. These are projects, as you see them happening a lot in China. This is what planners actually plan in China and what architects build in China. So, I mean, here you see a similar pattern repeating as we had in the basically after World War II. They deliver entire environments. This is Saudi Arabia, which are kind of very similar to what modernism achieved in the 1920s and 30s. A settlement in Dessau, designed by Gropius, I think, at the time. So in a way, are we kind of, I mean, these developments act as nothing has changed. And a lot of things have changed. Basically, we're kind of, we've made a big step in Europe. Other countries are leaping behind, but they are kind of catching up very quickly. And while China, for example, is still in this, you could say, second industrial revolution and in the middle of industrializing, it also already sees this overlay of communication, of media, of Facebook. Well, Facebook doesn't exist in China, but they have their own means of communication. So in a way, there is a layer on top which actually didn't exist back in the 1920s and 30s, which I think simply requires an adjustment of any kind of planning we're doing. But I think, and this is more looking into the future, there's something else happening. And I recently read a book, and has to do with a competition we're doing for a World Expo site in Astana. And the city of Astana said, well, actually, or the whole country actually said, we have to move away from what they call the second industrial revolution, oil-driven economy, towards a third industrial revolution, which actually is about solar power and in a way moves away from the oil. And it might sound, we all discuss this in terms of climate change, that we should reduce CO2 and carbon emissions, but there is a very, very pressing, in a way, thing going on right now, and that is that we're kind of running out of oil. We all know that, but that is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And there is, across recent kind of cycles, we always see that oil prices barely, in kind of real purchase power, went higher than $100 per barrel. As soon as that happened, the economy collapsed, and with less demand, actually oil prices also went down again. And we've seen this in the last years happening a number of times, and we will see this happen even more often, with generally increasing demand, but also with, in a way, generally decreasing supply. this is mapping out how much oil this is mapping out how much oil there is per capita on the globe. Now, what you can see actually in the late 1970s, we had the biggest provision of oil per person on the globe. What we see is actually we discover new oil resources, but actually the population of the globe is developing much faster than our ability to discover oil. And on top of that, it gets more and more expensive to actually get hold of this oil. Now we're talking about shale gas, which is kind of a replacement. We talk about pumping chemicals into the ground, which all come at enormous cost. So what we'll see is in the next 50 years, I guess it's about 50 years, we will see an enormous change in how our cities work. We have to move away from cities as they are now to cities which actually start generating energy, which use sunlight. We have to move away from our beloved car mobility towards a mobility which is much more integrated, using cars still. Maybe they're electric, maybe they're on hydrogen, but we simply see an enormous change that's going to happen. And we have to do this all together. It can't be just planning doing it. It has to be businesses, people, and the planners themselves, together with administrations that actually achieve that. Now, what will change? I mean, I tried to summarize this a bit. We actually have more actors in the planning game than ever before. Basically, everybody can contribute nowadays. People are better educated, and they can actually better also, in a way, communicate around these topics. They have better means to communicate and influence things. There's much more transparency in the process, and there is a sort of omnipresence of problems. So if there is a demonstration on a square in Istanbul, it also affects our thinking. We know about it, we have an opinion, and eventually we also can react to that. And it might impact on how we see projects that happen in Eindhoven or in Amsterdam or anywhere else where we live. We have much more and much better accessibility to knowledge, whereas knowledge around kind of urban topics was something which was rather exclusive in the past. It is actually now largely in the public domain, and everybody can access it fairly easily. But there's also much more kind of minority care. So you cannot simply kind of overrule a minority easily anymore as you could in the past. And that since our society has become much more fragmented, there's also more and more minorities that need to be considered. Local in a way is global, so whatever problem we have here actually has an impact on the world scene and the other way around. We also have politics which are much more focused on the short and medium term, and there's much less long-term thinking. And so how do we deal with that? And on top of that, we are getting more and more dependent on oil with our old systems. And with oil getting scarcer and scarcer, we already saw a number of wars which were clearly, where oil was one of the reasons why the wars took place. And then we have a certain trend to uniformity and to categorize things. So we try to put things into different boxes just for ourselves to keep the world in a way in a certain order, which actually ignores simply the increased complexity we cannot escape. But in planning, we still do as if nothing has changed. We still do master plans as if the complexity was the same as in the 1930s or 40s. We still deliver kind of sterile results, and it takes, I think, typically about 20 years, if at all, until a plan kind of comes to life. We to a large extent, do actually planning based on, in a way, what is kind of, how shall I say, what is desirable, but not something we barely consider what is actually realistic. What can we achieve realistically? So we're doing all these enormous projects, and nobody actually asks, is it actually necessary? I mean, we have now 8 million square meters of office space in Holland, which is empty, which is all comes out of these over-optimistic projections as to how the future looks like. And even if we respond to that, we try to do that with rules that get more and more complex, and with, in a way, rules and regulations that in the end nobody understands anymore, which I think is a big problem, because as soon as you can't read the guidebooks anymore, and you don't understand them anymore, then you've reached a point where they simply become useless. So we actually have to come up with tools where we can, in a way, steer direction and steer a general outcome, a certain quality, without being too prescriptive about how high the building has to be, what kind of material it is, etc., etc. Don't get me wrong, all individual rules have their reason and they're fine to have, but in their totality, they just create a sort of a monster in a way of rules and regulations, which makes it very difficult to advance into the future. So we have to clean up at some point, or say, well, I mean, do we really need this rule or don't we need it? Does it really achieve what we want or does it not achieve it? Or is it just simply a habit that we do it? So in a way, the planner has to change, in my eyes. We have to move away from a sort of rule book into simply embracing complexity and saying, well, it's a matter of fact that we live in a complex world, so let's use it. Let's use the people that, in a way, embody that complexity. We are moving very much from tabula rasa to transformation, and Eindhoven, I think, is a very good example where this tabula rasa condition is less and less a sort of condition which is desirable even. So rather than taking down buildings, which there is a certain tradition for in Holland, and replacing them, actually Eindhoven and some other places start saying, well, let's take the building as they are and see what we can do with them. Which in a way is also kind of enriching already the starting point for any development. I think we have to move away from what we always call the big plan. So, you know, the big planner with the big plan that knows how things work, and simply much more go into an understanding of process, where the plan is a sort of product which you can put on the table. The plan in the process tool with which you actually try to, in a way, bring together all the parties involved, and where you try to organize all the different opinions and all the different ideas that actually take place. And ultimately it means that we have to move really away from being this kind of technocratic planner to somebody which we like to describe as somebody which is a curator. So it's not our job to do technical planning. Well, that's part of our job, but the large part of the job is actually to create the conditions where all people that in a way have a say or should play a role in a process, or where we think that they would be important to it, to actually bring them together and in a way make a nice exhibition or make a nice event out of it. So this was basically the thinking, and maybe it's not very revolutionary, but it's just basically a summary of where we stand now. And this is where we actually started with our company. Our model, in a way, is kind of, I mean, we're still a startup. We haven't earned, I think, a single cent in 1.5 years. I mean, we have earned some money, but that kind of went into starting up the firm. But at the same time, we're also an investor. Now, investor without money sounds kind of strange, but I tried to explain how we kind of think about that. So that's basically us. We are based in Rotterdam, and I have to say how this came about is that basically two partners which have an architecture firm called McCrane & Lamington since 20 years and have an office in Rotterdam and one in London. Basically only did architecture, and at some point felt that A, they found this a bit tight, and B, that in a way the Dutch market was drying up, and just working in London they found a bit too risky. So this is how this whole MLA Plus story in a way came about. But essentially we started with a firm which was in Rotterdam, and then in a way successively we kind of built our kind of network. Now, the London firm already existed, and these two firms, in a way, operated fairly independently from each other. They had a shared portfolio. There was a certain degree of coordination, and step by step, we kind of involved other people, which in parts we know since a long time. We now have an office in Shanghai, which is people that we know since I know since 10 years, and they have a firm there, and we collaborate with them. We have an office in Minsk. Jana is sitting here, which I got to know, what did we say, 9 months ago? At the conference in Perm, and we felt that we can work together, and that's developing very good. We're in talks about setting up something in Delhi in a similar fashion. So step by step, we're kind of extending our network. In 2 weeks' time, a colleague of mine is going to Brazil, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up actually having another kind of leg also in South America. And actually, it's such that, I mean, at the moment, it's largely a collaboration between us and these different firms, which are basically independent bodies. But on the long run, actually, it's much more. We're also interested in really kind of building a network so that they actually start collaborating with each other. In for certain things that already happens now, that we do a lot of our rendering work in China, and that is doesn't matter whether the office is in Minsk or in Rotterdam or in London, but the office in Shanghai kind of coordinates that work. And you can also see this happening with a lot of other things. The competition we do in Astana is something which we do between Rotterdam and Minsk, and the team is here now to do the competition. The other way around, when we have a project in Russia, we will also just move people from here there. So it's a network, but it's also a possibility to kind of exchange people, and by exchanging people, actually just strengthening that network. I think, while this is kind of still sort of geographical and universal in terms of disciplines, in the next step, we could also well imagine to, in a way, next to a geographical network, also actually building a network of expertise, and just adding more entities to that, which start collaborating with each other. And of course, that can then, in a way, will have its own dynamics. At the moment, this is probably when, this is one situation, but in the future, the office in Minsk could be very successful, and then it becomes even bigger than we are. But that, in a way, changes the size of the nodes, but it doesn't necessarily change the fact that there is a network. So how do we do it? What's the kind of collaboration? How do we invest? Actually, when we started, we said, well, it's not about investing money. It's actually because we didn't have money, but what we have is we have had a portfolio. The office had been building up for 20 years. There is quite a number of people in the office which have quite some know-how. We have networks that we have, and there is in a way a sort of brand name which we can give. That's in a way our investment into whoever is kind of interested. We want to work together with people that, in a way, bring something of interest to us. And what that could be quite a wide range. It's a unique knowledge which we don't have. It could be networks themselves. It could be a project. It could be, something which is of interest to actually growing the network, in a way, growing the joint business. We're also very well interested in people which, in a way, have an entrepreneurial spirit, because we think that in a world where the way we want to operate, let's say, this is not a sort of non-profit organization. We want to be an office which is profitable in the end, and in a way, you have to have this kind of entrepreneurial genes to actually, sense situations and sense the opportunities to actually capitalize on. We also want to, in a way, work with people under a brand name. So people have to feel comfortable to work under a joint brand, which in some places is difficult, because some people might say, well, my name has to be on my company. But we feel that if we have a joint brand and a joint name, then we can simply also appear as a much more kind of advanced, in a way, network. We actually want to do things together, and we also want to share things. And this is not just doing projects and sharing projects; it's also in a way, sharing the profit these projects generate, or the turnover these projects generate. So people should actually be able to live off of that collaboration. And we somehow also want, in a way, that both parties, so that's us, but that's also our collaborators, actually work on a sort of exclusive basis with each other, which means that in a way we are kind of slowly growing the collaboration, but it also means that if we from our side have something in Russia for the sake of the example, that Jana would be involved in that project and we would not work with somebody else unless that's discussed with her. So there is actually, what we try to do is find a balance and a sort of mutual benefit for both sides, and especially for people which are kind of struggling, and that's a lot of young people that actually don't have references. So they come into a market which is, which with no, basically, well, with a lot of ambition, but not with a portfolio, not with the networks, all these kinds of things, which we have and which we are happy to share, provided that we also get something in return. And in a way, this is where we stand at the moment. At the moment, we actually, and this is actually the next step, which came out of a discussion that if we collaborate, then we also need to find ways how we kind of share knowledge and how we bring it together to work from MLA Plus to establishing what we call MLab, which actually is going a step further. It's basically, this would be the sort of MLA Plus network, but of course we're collaborating a lot with partners from outside that network. And what we really want to do is actually developing a sort of yeah, a knowledge base, a place where we can exchange and collect knowledge, specific expertise, which then is actually accessible for all parties. So what this is a sort of peer-to-peer kind of thing. So you have to give something to draw all the information from the others. And we feel that with that, actually, it also starts making economic sense. So it's not that you can just get any information which is in here when you come from outside. You actually have to bring something to the table to be able to draw from that. There will be an interface with the public, which is more a sort of showcase of what we are kind of working on. But internally, with this kind of setup, we are actually generating flows of exchange which actually are worth money. And I think in the end, if you want the trick to actually, and somebody we've been talking about how to make a business case in a way, kind of giving and taking within a network. In a way, is like exchanging projects with against money. But if you don't have money, you can actually give knowledge to that. But as long as you keep it exclusive, the whole thing, in a way, kind of also maintains a certain kind of economic, how should I say, economic value in that entire system, and that's what we're actually working on right now. That's it.
Hello. My name is Martin and I'm not a city planner. I'm thank you. I'm a student from the ex-student from the Design Academy, and I started up an atelier collective, collaboration now. Maybe it's an idea to just start with the video and show you what kind of place I'm talking about.
Een beetje glimlachen. Ja!
Nee, dat ben niet zo mooi. Is echt oh.
Bij 3 minuten. Oké. Dankjewel.
So, like I told you, I'm not a city planner, but what I know is that 100 years ago, 90% of the people lived outside of the city and 10% in the city. In 50 years or so, it will be the other way around. Everybody lives in the city. And as a child of my generation, I did the same thing. I'm from a small village. Moved to the big city because I really wanted to Amsterdam, Rotterdam. Did several studies, but in the end, I wanted to be a designer, and I wanted to do the design academy. So I went to Eindhoven, and that was quite a disappointment if you lived in Amsterdam. Because Eindhoven, it's not the most sexy place to be. It's, I thought, and I learned through the years that Eindhoven is quite sexy, but it's sexy from the inside. So the knowledge and the people and the things that are happening here are really interesting. So I grow fond with this city. During my study, I was thinking about how is my future going to look like, and what happens after my study. How am I going to support myself, and how am I going to work? When you're studying, you have this really nice environment of students, teachers, where you can resonate on the people who are giving you inspiration. But if you're in your your studio on your own, then you miss this part. Also, you have this really beautiful workspace and so on. And I wanted to prepare myself and my colleague students to have a better future than that. So I can work with this. So I started up a collective. I had this beautiful space, and I wanted to create something for my future. This is the space where you see the pictures from. Is the third space we are in. We started in an empty hall that was for free, and we could stay there for 5 years, they said, but it was not true. And then, so you start to learn, you start to fall on your face, and you step up, and you learn as a group. We have an organic, how do you say, we have a flat organization. There is no hierarchy. So, and we're learning together, and we're running it together. And we call it our kitchen-friendly atelier workspace to explore, share ideas, build, and play. So this is a picture of the space. You see, this is I think 2 years ago or 1.5 years ago. And we're partly building ourselves. We wanted to have a big space. We wanted to have a space where we could elevate or make elevated floors for offices. And through the years, we learned that it was important to have an open space where we can meet each other, where we could see each other's work, and where we could share the space. So we had these individual goals for ourselves, to be entrepreneurs, to be independent, to be famous. I don't know. We had all different kind of ideas, but we also have this shared ambition, and that's where we found each other. So you can a little bit see how we worked. We made like a small dog fill with making the stripes on the floor where your individual space was, and together we And together we also rented a part for the machinery in the workshop. We thought of a modular building structure to. The idea was to have people come and go. So if you grew and you learned from each other and you had your own business going up, then you would go and take your office apart and take it with you, and somebody else had to build something new. So it has to be modular. Well, as I told you, the structure was, the idea was to keep it open. So the first time we all built walls, and you had these hallways, and that was not sharing, that was not being together, that was being on your own on the same roof. So and now we have we show, okay, this is what I rent. But if my project is a little bit bigger, then I stand on your space, and vice versa. So we share. We really share. This is everybody, but then 3 times. So and that's the power of being together. We are with 14 people, and we discovered that we had this great power. Together, if you work together, then you could achieve a lot and create mountains. We collective invest in the machinery. So we have like a stock system to share the expensive machines that we cannot buy ourselves. Also one of the strong points of working together, doing it together. Buying the materials together. And sharing our network. We see the space also more as an workshop alone. It's not only a studio or a working space, but it's also a place where we can present ourselves. Every year during the Dutch Design Week, we clean the whole space, light it, make it beautiful, and amaze people. Every year, people are coming and they step in with their mouth open because it's quite unique. But also because we present it that way, and because we use it in different ways. We also have dinners over there, and we receive different kind of parties. So this is a photo of the Dutch Design Week. Everybody is showing and presenting themselves. And also the idea was to have. I had this dream of my future work, and that would be in a group of people with different qualities, different perspectives. So and that was also the idea when I was searching for people to collaborate with. Not only people who are doing the same thing as me, because then you're in each other's way, but if you have different qualities, you can fill each other's ideas and resonate on each other. So this is the 14 members at the moment. This is Joost, GM, Paul Heijnen, Daan Banburg, Kim Hagen, she's our only girl. Luc van den Broek, Bart van Uden, Casper, myself, Sander, Victor, he's really an artist. Niels is making stop motion animation. Emiel is our graphical guy. And Tedo Bakker, he's really a conceptual thinker and making. It was really nice. Someone in a newspaper called him a bio artist. Jelle makes music with objects. And we see ourselves as a organic, flexible organization. And what that means is that we have an idea or we think of something, and then we are open to discussion and we're open to change. So nothing is set. Everything is open. Everything can change. So if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work, we have to discuss it and we change it. We like to experiment, but that's also in our work, in our materialization of ideas, but also in concepts and ideas. And we try to be zakelijk menselijk. It is really to be personal and businesslike at the same time. This is our kitchen, by the way. We're independent, so we like to do what we like to do, and well, independence. To be independent is that's what we really were striving for. We didn't want any subsidies or influence from governments or so, or whatever. We really want to do it ourselves. And we have a lot of fun together. And this is our slogan: big boys working together. So this is a slideshow from the space and who we are. I think it is a beautiful space to be, and we learn a lot from each other. It is really nice to see that through the years we've taken more and more seriously. And I think the beautiful part of Eindhoven, Eindhoven really provides us the possibility to do things like this. Oh, sorry. I take a glass of water. I found it funny because Kees Donkers, he went by with a group of Russian students, and a lot of different people from different countries or interns are dropping by, and they all say, "Wow, this is amazing. This would never be possible in our city or in our country." I think that's not true. I think if there is the will and the ambition, everything is possible. But Eindhoven does provide us the space, because they as we say in Dutch, they look through the fingers. It's not an international term, but the idea is that they accept and they don't. Well, they're very proud of these kind of initiatives, and they like to show it to the rest of the world what's possible if you not really on the rules and not really if you give some room. So that's what I'm very grateful for, and that's who we are. So thank you very much, and
Well, the next part, we have our only Eindhoven Pauwman Witteman. They're sitting here. Well, you want to ask some questions, but maybe the speakers can go and sit here, and we will do our own question and answers. Yeah?
Thank you. Yeah, we're Philippe and Nick, part of the organization as well, and we had a few discussions about how to set this up. This is the third IQ, and the first two weren't in such a setting. But maybe connecting to the talk of Martin, this is without rules as well, actually. So we'll find out how it works. At least we thought about this topic a little more, so we prepared a few questions. But I would like to invite everybody to, well, just raise your hand, and if you have anything that connects with something you've heard, please join the conversation, because the second part, the debate, before we go to the bar, is, well, the part where we hope to get everybody some more inspired and to connect the speakers. One of the things I first have to ask is that ISOCARP has been a topic for you two especially. And today I hear 4 stories that connect very easily, actually. We more and more know that the younger generation should be involved in urban planning and giving them opportunities to use the city. But ISOCARP, as Marcus mentioned before, is a group of people that started, well, around 65, you said. So they're around 75 years old, and you had a nice slide of what urban planning is right now, the We Act As If slide. And that means you have an idea about this is the way it goes and it should be different. But it's still the way it goes, isn't it? And how does that connect to your connection with ISOCARP? That's something I really would like to know.
Is that a question or a statement from your side? Well, I mean, I think the interesting thing is we all have like a feeling, or we have like experience on a daily basis what happens, you know. And I mean, if you make the same kind of experience 4 or 5 times in a row, you think, well, this is kind of a trend, you know. And at the same time, you don't know what you know, where it's exactly heading. But what I see is that things are getting more and more complex in terms of and more process oriented than ever before. Putting down just a plan and you finished is not doing the job simply. I mean, I always try to explain this to clients that their expectation is wrong, since they often have in mind that they buy a master plan, which is a product, whereas we come there and tell them actually what you need is a process. And by the way, by the time we are finished, actually your work is only probably like 1% down the line, and there's another 99% across the next 40 years in a way for this plan to kind of materialize and see all the changes that happen in society, in the plan, in transport, in energy, whatever. But I think a lot of people see that things are changing and they see it on a daily basis, but there is, you know, like with any change, there is also this kind of idea that if you don't change, or if you don't do anything and you don't change rules, then you know, you kind of can escape it. And I don't think that's going to happen. Now, where does this go? I don't know. I mean, that's the open question. And that's actually the interesting thing of working in that field, that basically with every project, almost with every day, you kind of experience things which you didn't expect in that way or another before. And you continuously have to see how you kind of maneuver through this kind of forest of things that you see. You have an idea. At least I try to have that as to where I want to end up with. But this is a kind of fuzzy picture. But how I get there is very often totally unclear. And of course you start kind of walking in one direction, but sometimes you realize that actually this was the wrong direction, and you're kind of taking a left turn to actually get back to a place where, you know, you kind of reach consensus, and then you move on. So these are incremental steps. What's important, I think, as a planner is that you don't leave a sort of overall kind of idea out of sight. With idea, I mean like, you know, a sort of very general description of the quality you feel a place should have. And I think that's the That's our kind of unique quality, that we can envision qualities of places which other people can't. That's my description, but maybe you can add to that.
The collaboration to the ISOCARP Congress for me is in constellation we're sitting here now and discussing here now. It's very important that a lot of young people can talk about what planning is, but also what a city is, because the persons who are now visiting the ISOCARP Congress are the ones who have already got it all. You know what I have all realized. So there can be a lot of exchange, but we also need the new thinking about planning, the new thinking about the city. So when you're saying about the process, I think when we are working, I told every project takes about 5 to 10 years. In that time, there happens a lot. So every time you have to discuss the conditions where you are in on that moment. Every step you have to say, now we are clicking some conditions, then you have to go here and you have new conditions. That way of working is very interesting to deal with other people. So the context, the content of the ISOCARP Congress, I think there are also other international organizations who have planners, who bring planners together. But now we are talking about ISOCARP especially. But I think it will be very important that a lot of young planners now working today can exchange a lot of that kind of experience. And then you will get a new debate, I think.
But we do need the older generation.
I think they have a lot of knowledge we can use. Yes, I think. But yes, no, I think the things they told are very interesting, but you have to put it in. Yeah, they are dated. I will say it. They are dated. They are on other contexts where they have been working. Now we have a new way of working.
Can I add just one thing? I think with this generation, I don't think we should engage in a sort of generational war. When ISOCARP was started, there were reasons why they started it, and I mean also the pictures I was showing of like the Bijmer, that it was all done with the best intentions and based on like a sort of trend of the time. So, and we cannot. I mean, it's the same now. Maybe in 10 years' time, we say, well, what we've done today is just, proved to be totally wrong, and we have to go another direction. That's always the risk you have. And it's more a sort of observation, talking to the real old guard at ISOCARP. I often feel kind of more attached to these guys which are 75 or even older, because there is a certain degree of openness to kind of new things, which they also needed when they took the initiative to start it. Which kind of I feel much more connected and attached to than a sort of in between generations, which is between, let's say, 55 and 65, or between 50 and 70 somehow, which still is very much in a way responsible for what has happened in the last 20 years and is still in business, whereas the older guys, they're kind of out of business, they're retired, and they in a way can also afford that, and they don't mind change because it in a way, kind of world moves on, and they have the freedom again to kind of think more freely, whereas people which are still in this business and which the whole business model is actually based on that kind of making of plans, they're much more strict in how they kind of see the world. It's just an observation.
If we're talking about this subject, I would like to compare it, for example, with craftsmanship. If you have an older generation who is really experienced in some sort of craft, then that craftsmanship won't change by time. So then the experience is really valuable. And when you have a master and a student, you will learn a lot from them, from that experience, and also what in our collective we have the strength is for a large part when we work together, the diversity and the diversity in ideas. And generation is also diversity, I think. So.
Sorry, I have to react on that very short because the only thing, I don't want a generation war, of course not. But the only question that remains is how can we work together? Because they found a certain way of working a few decades ago that seemed to work by then, and to criticize that is, I think, is very wrong because it was a good system by that time. But right now you see some more dynamic system, and how can we connect that to the way they work? And if I see the pictures of your collaboration, and the only thing I see is a bunch of young people. So you have more disciplines, but they're all young people. And they're all, well, I think, maybe I'm wrong, they're capable of dealing with a constantly changing situation. And I think that's something our generation is quite good at, because the world moves a lot faster and everything's in a big flow. So if I look to my grandparents, I see them, well, in a more static situation than we are. And that's not only because of their age. So the only question that I really have is how can we work together with them? It's a difficult one, and I have no idea how to answer it myself. But
I don't know. I think the whole market is changed, so that's the big difference. Because after the World War, we all needed housing, so we started to build masses of houses because everyone needed one. So people were not very critical about it, and I think that's the big change now, that the customer of the city and the city users have changed, have grown, are more critical about what they need. So we have to change, everyone. And I think the problem with not the problem, but the uitdaging, challenge for the older people is to let go, I think. Let go of the rules, like you already said, and take new risk and just see what happens if they let go. And that's very exciting and a bit scary for a lot of them, but yeah, it will take time, I think.
I think something you mentioned was interesting about how maybe 70-year-olds or above are more flexible to interact and exchange ideas. I think it's because they have nothing to lose anymore. I mean, they're done, you've said it. So I think the generation in between has that to lose and the responsibility. So it's about everybody has got something to lose and to win. And I think if two generations who need to work together because they're active in that field, approach each other with humility and openness, and also, okay, we've got all to lose and all to win. I think that is a startup, but it's not you have to or we have to, or it's both sides, I think, but both sides in different aspects because it belongs to each generation. And I'm sure that generation was flexible when they were young, so it has to do with young people are flexible, and the older you get, the more roots you get, and that's the nature of human beings, I think. So it's recognizing that and acknowledging that, I think.
I want to disagree. I think we're kind of. I think we see a paradigm shift, and that has to do with technology. I think whereas in the past it was like the younger generation has to admire the older generation for what they have achieved, play to their rules, and in a way kind of start slowly kind of transforming rules. I think we now almost see an inversion. 'Cause the younger generation, I mean, you and well, me to a certain extent, you for sure, are kind of fully understand technology, know much more about, the things that actually drive and move the world at the moment. So in a way, it's that generation that kind of sets the pace, whereas before it was actually the older generation which set the pace. And I think there is really a shift, and I think that's what a generation in between, in a way, is really struggling with. That all by a sudden, all these beliefs and these kind of rules which were in place for generations and generations start to collapse within a very short amount of time. And of course, if things change so drastically, people tend to be even more closed and even more kind of want to stick even more to what they've achieved. And I think, I mean, the only thing is just accept it and go with it. That's okay. Well, then we're on the same page. Good.
I want to ask something to Kees and to Martin. We spoke about the importance of having young creative people in your city, and at a certain moment in your presentation you said something. In the past, young creative people, they study in Eindhoven, then they move to Amsterdam or to Rotterdam, and we're kind of proud that in these days they stay longer or maybe forever in the city, and I think that's good. But on the same time, some people say, well, maybe it's better to function as a kraamkamer. I don't know the English word for that, but. And let them go after a certain amount of years, because that's your focus and that's your strength, to be a kraamkamer, and other cities have other strengths, and maybe it's not too bad if they go after a few years. And I was wondering, Martin, you are a creative young professional and you live in the city and you work here. What's your opinion about that?
I think if I have to compare, for example, Amsterdam to Eindhoven, in Amsterdam, my brother lives there, and I know the creative culture through his eyes, and it's really fighting and boxing up each other. And that's in some way a good thing, but also not that really nice. Here in Eindhoven, people really help each other and really are there for each other. It's really a working mentality, and we go for it together. And that's what I really like of being here. I don't know if that really answers your question, but yeah. Is something you want to say about it?
I found out it's more or less the same. It's about mentality. Well, I found out in Russia it's the same. In Russia you have Moscow and St. Petersburg and the rest of Russia. In Holland you have Amsterdam, Rotterdam and the rest of Holland. So we are a family, let's say. The rest of Russia is a family of the rest of Holland. And I found out in Yekaterinburg and all the cities, big, huge cities, people feel the same as we do, and they are very cooperative. Has the same mentality as you described. And I also feel very connected to, for instance, Belgium, because the Belgian people, they have the same mentality too. It's also called Brabant, for instance. As not only, but and they speak Dutch too. But the idea is that you have the same modesty, the same mentality, the same, well, how do you call it in English? It's about modesty, I think, and the fact that you like to collaborate. And I think we use it here, and we show it here in this city. We are too modest, maybe. People say you are too modest, you are not proud enough. And maybe we are, but we don't care, because we develop the way we like to. And that's what's happening right now. And well, what I see in urban planning, because urban planning is about city development, and what I found out the last 20 years, that we don't develop anymore like blueprints. We don't build outside the city anymore. We don't grow anymore, but we shrink. We get smaller, and we have to reuse our existing city. So that's why your movie about 2.0 city is very, well, we did the project in Yekaterinburg. It's called Yekaterinburg 2.0. It's about to find out how Yekaterinburg, which city is very comparable with Eindhoven, but 10 times bigger. They are very comparable, and they have the same developments, and they can learn from each other. So I think our role nowadays is not to make drawings anymore. So it's not about bricks, it's about people. And we are the sensors in the city, more or less. Not the only one, but we learned how to translate the developments in the city, the social developments in the city, into new ideas. And the young people, they are the inventors of those new ideas. because it's their future and not my future. It's also 10% is my future, but it's 90% is your future. So that's the reason why I think it's good and it's very important to collaborate like generations, but that's not so important.
Was there someone? I saw, yeah.
Sir Norman Foster built a big city, or is planning to build a big city in somewhere in the desert in the Middle East. And yeah, I'm wondering, how do you reflect on that? If is this something we are going to do in the future, or are the projects from bottom up more the way the world is going for, like the collaboration?
For who's that question?
Well, I think that's more an example of the last century, let's say, of the blueprint urban planning. Because maybe it's still needed. Some cities are still growing, maybe, in somewhere in the world, but in Europe, cities are shrinking. And I think in the future, more cities will be shrinking. So I think maybe that plan can go on. It's okay, but it's one of the last, I think.
Guys, do you think it still can be sexy urbanism if you just build a city like that? Is it possible? Or is sexy urbanism what we're talking about here?
After me. Well, I think the sexy part is more about existing cities, about people reacting on existing situations. And well, I found out it in my city because I started 20 years ago. And it was called an ugly city. That's why I showed the slide from ugly duck to design pearl, and that's happened in the city. So I found out that it can be very important for young people to find their city sexy enough to stay there and not to move. And because they are the growing engine, they are the seeds for the future. Like happened with Philips. Philips collapsed in the 90s, but the seeds of Philips gave us our new identity. The identity of well, technical city, let's say, but or knowledge city. And I think that's very important. So I think we have to listen to the young generation because they are the seeds for the future. And that's why I think I can share my knowledge with them, but they give me energy because of that. But I hope I can give them energy too because of what I've learned and the scope that I have in my experience through my career. So that's what you share.
Going back to that city story. Yeah, well, I mean, there is kind of rough estimate that in the next, 20 years, there will be about 200 million Chinese moving from the countryside to the city. I mean, you can regenerate as much as you want. You won't be able to accommodate those 200 million people in old parts of cities. So I think depending on where you look in the world, there is definitely a need to expand cities. But then still is a discussion: how do you do it? Do you do it like I showed you in a couple of pictures, or is there also another way of actually kind of achieving urban environments? Because there is no definition that new cities have to look boring and new cities have to be in that fashion. So I think we have to be a bit careful on how which place we're looking at when we talk about whether it's credible to do these kinds of city developments or not.
It would be interesting because in China there's the same thing is going on that has happened here. A big growth of industrial life and business and everything. So the cities are developing in an enormous tempo. So how can they prevent the same thing that has happened here with mass housing and big plans? Is there a way if there's such an enormous growth going on?
If I may contribute to that question as well.
One moment.
It's It's working? Yeah. It's more or less in line of what I was about going to ask is, you're talking, sorry, I'm capturing your question as well a bit, but you were talking about sexy urbanism, or call it attractive urbanism, and the city 2.0, and how the planners should well evolve in thinking, and how the citizens of the cities in the world are evolving and are, well, as the example shown in Istanbul, are proclaiming their territory. But in what way are the clients or the developers or the municipalities or the people assigning the projects, in what way or in how, in what, how do you say it, in welke mate, how far are they withholding those developments? In what way are they a withholding factor in that? Well, I hope I made myself clear. Well, more or less all of them, but most especially, I think, Marcus and the woman from Belgium.
All right. In the city of Antwerp, we have the structure plan, the strategic structure plan, and the city the city government, yes, just has that structure plan also as the vision for the city. So in that way, also the administration has that plan as the vision for the city. So all the plans that private persons or private project developers wants to realize will be seen by that vision. And when they don't correspond to the vision, or they don't involve to realize the vision, they have to redesign it. And from the city, we have some experience with it. We say we have the possibility to give them some help to make a master plan that fits with the vision, so they have the possibility to develop their project and to earn money. And so we have now, I think, about 3 private housing developments we are die we begeleiden. So we have, the city has the vision, the administration has the vision, and everyone who wants to realize the project has also to involve in the vision.
And do you think there could be maybe a shift coming from the role of a planner or an urban planner from designing and planning a city into also guiding, well, in your example, the government or the clients into thinking in a way that will make all these possibilities also possible?
Yes. The project leaders, my colleagues, they are managers, they are planners, they are philosophers, they are, yes, how should I say, yes, they have a lot of functions to do to have the process from an idea to a realization. So they aren't only a planner, because a planner, when he is only a planner, he can't manage such a project.
Can I add something to this topic?
To summarize, I mean, I will always call us the attorneys of the greater good, in a way, which I think is kind of what our attitude. So we don't fear fighting with our clients, we don't fear fighting with the public, we don't fear fighting with anyone. So we have the most uncomfortable position in this whole thing, but we feel it's necessary to actually achieve what the city needs in the end, and actually forcing all people in the end into a compromise which nobody is happy with, but everybody accepts.
You asked me why I stayed in Eindhoven, and I think the sexy thing about Eindhoven is that I see a future for Eindhoven in which I can participate in how it's going to be. So I can shape it. I can be part of that. If I would live in Amsterdam or Rotterdam, it would be in 20 years the same city as it is now. But Eindhoven would be a different place, and I really believe I can be a part of that. And I think John Kermeling, well-known local artist, came by at the Collaboration O, and he was amazed. He made the Happy Street in Shanghai. It was the Shanghai, right? The World Expo. And well, that was similar to what we built actually. And he was really happy to walk around in our Collaboration and he told us that he was asked by parties like, can you design something like this for us, for living corporations, Trudeau and so on, to make something like that. And he said, I cannot do that. The only way to create something like this is to provide, to give room to achieve something like that. And it has to come from the people themselves. And I think, I'm not a city planner, but I think that would be a perfect role for the city planner to give people the power to create for themselves and to be part of that. And then I think you will get something unique.
Well, that's more or less an answer to what I would like to tell, because I talk about the seeds of Philips, that Philips exploded in the 90s, and they brought a lot of seeds, and they are now on the high-tech campus, for instance, and the rest of the city, and they gave the city a new identity. But the same thing more or less happened with you as a generation, the young designers. They also exploded in the end of the 90s, because the Design Academy graduation show came back to Eindhoven in '89. They were housed in the White Lady, and that was a sign to show our own beauty, to become an adult and see how beautiful you look like, and so becoming proud of yourself. And that happened at the end of the 90s, because of the Design Academy coming back, the graduation coming back to Eindhoven, and that developed into a design week, and now we are also proud of that. So I think that are the seeds that are growing now in this city, and that's why our city is, and we have to sense that aspect and that quality. So I think you're right that we have to be focused more on people than on the urban development, the old-fashioned way of the city development, I think. And that's why I think it's very important to give another 50 years of this group, ISOCARP, just bringing in this new generation. It can be a shock maybe for those old men, I don't know, but I like to share the knowledge with your energy. I hope so.
I think it's time for the last one or two questions, and I see some people happy with that.
I'm just thinking, also the good thing about young people is that sometimes they know when to stop talking and start doing and having a glass of beer.
Yeah, like we said in the beginning, we can continue this conversation at the bar if we have someone behind the bar, but we'll find him. So is there someone with a final question? I see two questions there. Those will be the last.
Just one question going through my mind all night. The artistic culture in Eindhoven has an added value for the city. There's no doubt. But is there added value for the? I don't know if they exist, but the average Eindhoven citizen, they exist. I'm sure they exist. Is there added value? It's a question for Martin, a little bit for Kees. But my feeling is that this new energy is for the in crowd, the young people, the in crowd, but it does not give new energy for the average citizens. We have a new logo, the city. And if you see the reactions on the internet, like 95% is very negative. So there's a gap between the new energy and the old.
It's a good question. Martin, Kees, who wants to react on this first?
I always think of reactions on the internet that there are certain people are always the ones who are reacting on those kind of things. So that's I think it is an enrichment for the city if there is culture and if it grows. And I see a lot of projects like Atelier Dorp or Kelderman en Van Noord, but as well Sexy Sea, where we are located. And Strijpes. I see those projects happening in the city, and I see a lot of local people interesting, dropping by, asking questions, and really are enthusiastic about seeing that there is happening something in their city. And there are things that they do understand, and they are proud of being part of that. So I think indeed that it contributes to those normal average people. Yeah.
Well, every year we have the Design Week, the Dutch Design Week, and 200,000 people come and visit that Design Week. So I think if you call them average, maybe you can call them average, but they enjoy it very much. So I think, and it's not only about because they can visit those designers, those happy few that you like to call them. And I think, so that's why I think it's not popular. It's also, it does something with people. So I think it contributes indeed to the new identity.
I think this whole creative scene, it works as a kind of an engine for a lot of other activities that many of the average Eindhoven people do enjoy. I think if you take away a Dutch Design Week and if you take away all the activities on Strijpes and places like that, we will not have the Glow event anymore, and many festivals, they will go away, and that's something that the average Eindhoven people will miss, I think, yeah. So we still need it as an engine for many other things.
I think this is a good moment to end this part of the evening. I think it's maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's a good conclusion to state that the sexy urbanism is only made if you don't see a difference between the people that plan the city and the people that use the city. If I may, and please shoot me at the bar if I'm wrong. This was the third IQ in this range. I would say again that this was a valuable evening. I want to thank all the speakers of tonight, Griet, Marcus, Kees, and Martin. Thank you very much. Another applause for them, please. And well, I think, Kees, a little question to you, but after the summer, we go on with this, right? Nice. So you'll see another invitation on Facebook or... So I hope you'll join us again after summer. And thanks for being here. And please don't leave. We have some music and a few drinks. Thank you very much.